everybody. Special interview episode of Behind the Gospel Music. We've got one of my childhood and beyond my childhood musical Christian heroes, Mr. Rick Cua. So I'm just kind of working my way through my musical heroes, and yeah, you're the third one. You're the third one
Wow.
that I've gotten. It was Ron Canoli, then Paul Wilbur, and now you, sir.
I love it. Well, I'm honored to be in that number.
Yeah, that's a good crowd.
It is. I know it.
So let's start with your testimony. Wikipedia just kind of gives you, and your website just kind of gives you some of the highlights. But walk us through that. It was Syracuse, New York, right?
Yes,
Syracuse.
absolutely.
You sound like I can't remember exactly the town. You think I got a friend of mine, and we've been friends over 20 years, and he's from the same town, like the town next door to where Billy Joel grew up. And you sound like you're from that part of New York, not from Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's the Italian. So
The Italian thing, it moves the accent around, so absolutely.
so yeah, walk us through your testimony of growing up in Syracuse to being with the Outlaws, and then getting saved and walking away from that and going into Christian music.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Syracuse, New York. My dad was a guitar player and a guitar teacher, and there was always a lot of music in my house. And so I just was exposed to it in a beautiful way and decided that I think I want to do this. And so I just, learned how to play, and my dad helped me out and encouraged me at every move. And I started playing music and loving it, and local bands up, and even regional bands in the upstate New York area and New England area. And I was enjoying myself. I was, at one point, I was really reaching for a record deal. To me, that would have been the brass ring. That would have been the thing that I would have liked the most. But I realized finally when I got saved, and we'll talk about that in a second too. But I realized that, for me, I was content. I was playing 4 nights a week at that point in a Chinese restaurant, 5 miles from home, and making a living and paying the bills and being with my family. And I said, Lord, I am good. I am good. And I'm going to back up a little bit. As a secular musician, I was always I always felt, as I grew up in the Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
not devout, not in church every week, but that's my ancestry. They were all Catholic Italians, and I always knew God was with me to what I thought to the nth degree, but I really didn't know until I finally accepted him as my Lord and Savior after my wife's conversion.
Mm.
We got married in 1970, and she wound up going to Florida to visit her dad that she hadn't seen in many years with our 1-year-old daughter. She went down there because her father found out that, he had a granddaughter and wanted to reconnect with his daughter and meet the granddaughter. I had a great family, a great dad, a great mom. And I really encouraged Diane. I said, Diane, listen, I know your life didn't go exactly the same as mine, but go down there, go see your father. And so she went down, and she was going to stay there for a week. And, we didn't have cell phones in those days. That was early 1970. And every time I would talk to her on the phone, the landline, uh, she, miss you, honey. How's everything going? How's the baby? All that. But she kept saying, when I get home, we got to talk. And I'm thinking, okay, we can talk. And I had no idea what she wanted to talk about. But 1 week turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month.
Whoa.
And what wound up happening was her father got saved unbeknown to Diana, and he had a revival week. He had a church. He did the Italian service in the church in Italian, and they had a revival, and it was a messianic Jewish believer. And Diana went because she just went. She didn't know anything about it. And after that revival, she got saved, and she said, "This guy knows my Jesus
Mm.
better than I do." And from that point on, she was on fire for the Lord. So she flies back to Syracuse, gets off the plane. In those days, you would be out on the tarmac, and they'd have the stairs they rolled to the plane.
Yeah.
She comes down looking beautiful. I hadn't seen her in a month, and she walks right up to me. The first thing she said, she points her finger at me and said, "You got to get saved." And I thought, "Saved from what?" And then when I finally realized what was going on, I realized, oh no, oh no, I got a holy roller on my hands now. And it was through her faithfulness and her kindness that I came to know Jesus. Not a month later, not a year later, because I'm a kabadost, I'm a hardhead. 5 years later, my wife had to put up with me, and finally, I got saved 3 Sundays in a row, to the point where the pastor had to finally tell my wife, "Tell Rick, he's good. He doesn't have to keep coming down." So that was that. And at that point, I'm still playing secular music. She's saved in 1970. Um, I'm saved in 19. No, she's saved in 1972. Excuse me. It was 1972 because our daughter was 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So now um, I'm just living my life playing music, growing in the Lord, going to church every week, learning more about Jesus. And this is now when I said I was working at the Chinese restaurant, happy and content, when all of a sudden something came up where I was able to audition for a band called the Outlaws. I got that gig, and all of a sudden I'm playing with a big band, touring, first class airfare, the bus tour, Europe, everywhere. And it was pretty cool. And I was grateful to God for that gig. And I was grateful that I got it as a Christian and not before I got saved, because, it was what you would expect it to be. Great guys in the band. I loved them. And it was wonderful. In the middle of my time with the Outlaws, actually early in the time with them, I wind up getting a Christian record deal, and that was like, wow, that was another wow. But I know you're going to be going live in a minute, but I just have to say, am I just like talking way too much?
No, 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 no. This is what we're here for. We're here to
Is
hear
this
your
good?
story. Yeah.
Okay. Because there's another Italian word I learned as a young boy, chiacchierone, meaning like a talking machine. So anyway, so I
It sounds
just,
better in Italian.
yeah, it does, right? It's a little softer, than, hey, shut up, you talk too much. No, I'm just a chiacchierone, that's all. Anyway, so yeah, so life went on, and I was with the Outlaws, and during my time with the Outlaws, because we'd go out and we tour maybe 3 weeks and then be home for a week or two, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into an old friend, Joe English. Joe played with Paul McCartney and Wings. But prior to that, we were buddies in upstate New York. He was from Rochester. I'm from Syracuse. And, he just a great friend and a ridiculously awesome drummer. And, I ran into him and he said, "Hey, I got saved." And I said, "Joe, you got saved?" I said, "I got saved too." And before you know it, you know, Gabriel, like you run into your old friends,
Mm,
and sometimes what happens is you find out you both became believers,
mm,
or somebody you didn't expect to be a believer all of a sudden accepted the Lord.
mm.
So Joe wound up sending me his debut record on Refuge Records, and it was killer. It was like my kind of music, not what I thought church music was.
Yeah, wasn't
And I told Joe,
wasn't the Gaithers.
yeah, which I've grown to love, of course. But
Yeah. Well, when you're
yeah, I
doing
mean,
rock
I'm
and
just,
roll to go do Southern gospel, you're like,
yeah, exactly. And that was exactly it. So I love Joe's record. And I happened to say to Joe through now letters, we're writing letters because we didn't have cell phones or internet or, email, none of that.
back in the Stone
And
Age
I
when I
said,
was born.
Joe, yeah. And I said, Joe, maybe, maybe someday I could do the same thing. So he introduced me to the head of his label, Ray Nenow was his name. And I was going to be playing in Nashville with Black Sabbath, of all people we toured with the Outlaws. And Ray Nenow came out to see me with another friend, James Isaac Elliott, great, wonderful guy and songwriter. And we wound up going to the Best Western Hotel where I was staying at the time because I still lived in Syracuse. And 3 hours later, I had a record deal. And I'm thinking, all right. And I knew he was coming to see the band. I had a cassette with a couple songs, one which became a number one song, actually, when I finally released the first record. But I played it for Ray and he loved it. And he said, okay. And I said, great. So when do you want to do this record? Now, this is March of, it would have been March of 81. I said, when do you want to do this record? I'm thinking he's going to say fall or, next spring. Or he said, well, let's do it in June. And now I'm thinking I got to write 8 more songs. So that was the experience, and that started it all recording wise. And it was just a joy. And, I realized that going from the Outlaws and all the amenities that you have when you're in a band like that to leaving that band in the middle of 83, when I was getting ready to do my second solo record, to start playing Christian rock after doing secular rock with a gold record band, it was a whole new world.
Oh, I bet.
Because at that point, a lot of the churches were not, they weren't, rock was not good.
It was the devil's music.
It was the devil's music. And if I had anything black and red on, those were the devil's colors. And it was all kinds of stuff. But whenever I get with people like that, the thing I really enjoyed the most is, let me tell you why I do what I do. And I got to say, almost 100% of the time, I mean, I'm sure there were a few people that, just weren't going to budge, but people got it. And they saw my heart and they saw why we did this as Christian rock musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the years, more records, more record labels, more touring, more songs, great exposure on the radio, and just everything grew and grew and grew. And I just knew God had me doing that for a reason.
Yeah. Well, you had, I think by the time I was exposed to you, which was 89, 90 with Midnight Sun. And I think it was there was a series of VHSs that like they would send to youth groups. And I can't remember what it was called. I wish my older brother was here because we call him Memory Man. Something like Midnight Fire or something Fire. You know what I'm talking about?
Fire by Night.
Fire by Night.
Fire by Night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it had I
yeah,
Can I Will, the music video for I Can I Will, and it had the music video for Young Boy Not Young Girl. And
right.
yeah, we got the cassette. I meant to grab the cassette. It's in my bedroom. I have a thing of like cassettes, all my cassettes. Still have the cassette.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I think by the time, so when you were getting started, and maybe you can speak on this, like, you had Carmen was coming out, kind of starting to, you know, you had the Jesus movement, so you had all those hippies getting saved and bringing drums into the church. Ooh,
Right.
Myron Lefevre, the Winans, Carmen, and then right around the time you were doing, like, Petra kind of came at the same time, and you also then shortly, like right after you guys, you had Striper, and just kind of showing the
Mhm.
church, like, hey, look, music is not. There's no such thing as the devil's music, and
Right.
I don't
Right.
think I think you guys had a big hand in showing the church, like, listen, this is actually still contested today. The people are like, well, this isn't God's music. This is what God's in, because we have this very finite view of what music in the church should be, and it's this, and then there's all these
Hmm.
other kind of styles and sounds and textures and colors of sound. But we just do this in church, and a congregation might do 4-chord rock and roll or folky stuff, or it's got old school hymns and they're singing, this style, or they're doing
Yeah.
gospel or black gospel, but there's no cornucopia, there's no kingdom sound. So, what are your
Right.
thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Well, just the devil doesn't. He's not a creative individual or spirit or whatever. The devil is. He creates nothing. He just perverts things.
Mm,
So music is just. I mean, I think the first number one we had was "You Can Still Rock and Roll," and the chorus was "You can still rock and roll if you're singing about the light." In other words, if Jesus is in that song, then yeah, any whatever music you want to put behind it, great,
hmm
because there were people with all kinds of musical tastes out there, and that's what we did, and there were people that like the hymns, and people that like black gospel, and people that like funk and R&B and rock and metal. There was, like you're saying, a cornucopia of all kinds of genres of music, and we just locked into the thing that we did. And for me, I was still playing the kind of music that I played when I was doing secular music,
Yeah.
whether it was with the original songs that we would write with our bands up in Syracuse, or whether it was we were playing cover songs that we loved, whatever. And it was the same thing. I mean, I used, I think, just about all the Outlaws on my first record, and loved it, and just made a real rock record.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it was still the churches. They were coming along. Radio for Christian rock was 2 hours on a Saturday night. That
Oh,
it wasn't like
they had
they
that
would
much. We don't even
program.
have that much today.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. It's not like they're programming, 24/7, you know. But those guys that had those shows, they were lovely, and they loved that music, and they made us feel like we belonged.
Yeah. How do you think we get back to that, not even plurality, but just that diversity, so we have diversity of ethnicity in the body of Christ, in the American church, in the Western church, but it seems it was so funny. I'll give you an example. I was serving at a mega church, and they wanted me to slide over and lead worship. They're like, "Oh, you're Spanish, right? You speak Spanish?" I said, "Well, I'm rusty." They're like, "Well, we need somebody to help with the Spanish music, with leading the music and the worship there." And I was like, "Fantastic!"
Yeah.
I was so excited because I'm like, "Oh man, we're gonna get to do salsa, merengue, and corritos," and it was like, "Oh no, you're just gonna sing everything, all the Hillsong and Bethel and in Spanish." And I was like, "That's it?" That's it? Like
Yeah,
nothing with an actual authentic Hispanic Latino flavor. So,
yeah.
we've how do we start to curb that? What are things that we can proactively do church wide?
Yeah.
Beyond. I mean, because as individuals, I can share with what we're doing. But before I do that, I want to hear. I want the wisdom of those that have come before me.
Mm.
Who's seen
Well,
some stuff.
here's the thing. We One of the realities that we have to live with is who is in your congregation, and if we've got people in the congregation that they are going to, what will draw them closer to God is a certain style of music in those days, whether it's Hillsong or Vineyard or Maranatha or whatever. Then if we want to have a successful worship service, we wind up doing that. And as far as doing something a little out of the box, I think it's fine. But I think maybe what you would do is, you're going to do some of the songs they know and say, hey, we're going to have a little fun. This is the way we worship the Lord down in wherever, in Mexico, in Puerto Rico, and wherever it is. And you may even teach them the chorus,
Mm-hmm.
and now you start doing it. And now all of a sudden, it's a novel thing that they are going to enjoy
Yeah.
because you might have taken them a little out of their comfort zone, but the way you positioned it to them, they feel brought in and part of it. That's just, again, just my opinion.
No, that's beautiful, and that's very applicable, especially to the local worship leader,
Mhm.
to the music industry, because you've been in the Christian music industry for, I mean, since let's see, 81, 82. So that's
Mhm. Yeah.
about as long as I've been on Earth. So 40 years you've been in the mix. How do we do that in the industry? Because we had this. To me, it started, like you had Gaither and you had the all the Southern gospel groups, and then Andre Crouch came and breathed that in, and Winans and so on, and like in the 90s it was just, man, you had whatever you wanted. I mean, from metal
Yeah.
to gospel rap. And it seems like in the 2000s, even like when I was in Nashville, I was there when they said, yeah, we're not really signing artists anymore. We're signing worship teams and worship groups and church teams, and
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah.
So it went from just this big old, buffet to like not even a Chick-fil-A, like an old school McDonald's menu. Like we got a hamburger, a cheeseburger, fries, shake, and 4 different
Yeah.
sodas. That's all you get. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what do we do there?
You know what? Um, the thing that it's a hard one, but to me, however radio informs their listeners, that's what everybody wants. Because when radio, if radio was, it hit. Listen, how none of us can complain about worship because it's now I can worship God with any kind of music,
Ditto.
but traditional worship where you're singing the words, you're being touched and moved, I love it. That's great. And if that's what radio is jumping all over, then the labels are going to say just what they said to you. We're not signing artists and bands anymore. It's worship teams and worship leaders and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen, I can't I can't complain about any of it because when we signed up for this industry, we said, here we are, this is what we do. And however it starts to move, there's nothing we can do about it. But there's always going to be somebody that likes what you do, what I do, as well as all the new worship bands, for King and Country, Casting Crowns, so many other names.
Mm-hmm.
So radio informs the public. It's what they play that becomes what people are going to want to listen to.
Yeah. what's been your what's your thoughts on how social media is shifting that? Because I think radio is almost two steps behind. Like they see what, like something happens on social media, it catches on with the churches, and then the industry is like, oh, we got to
Hmm.
get here, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that's not just in the Christian music industry. That's life across the board, from business,
Oh yeah.
entrepreneurship, marketing. Um, what
Mhm.
what what's what's some of the stuff you're seeing and how that's all working? Because it's almost made the music industry somewhat irrelevant, and also with streaming, you have artists that are becoming successful on their own. They're like, I don't want a record deal. I mean, I'm going to give you all this and I'm going to lose. I'm going to give you
Yeah.
control, ownership, and 90% of my income. For what?
Yeah.
What am I getting out of this?
I know. Well, here's the deal. We years ago, like when I started, and even prior, the labels really owned about everything, and most of us we were okay to let them do it because we didn't know any different,
That's true.
and the labels gave us a platform where we would be recognized and our phone would ring and booking agents would book us and we'd go. That's where we would make our living,
Yeah.
not off of the records, because you had to recoup. Um, you had to recoup first. And
Oh yeah.
by the time, if you recouped, the label, they were doing okay.
Yeah. That's something
So
they didn't tell
it's
us.
just,
They didn't tell us that growing up, right? That a record deal wasn't nothing but a loan. It's like, no, I made it. Like, no, you just signed up for a loan.
I know. I know it, and for many of us, we don't own our masters, and yes, we have our writer royalty, but a lot of us we gave our publishing away, and again, uh, there's a lot of things that we've all learned over the years. Would I maybe have at least tried to do a few things different? Yes, but again, I can't complain because the platform that we got, even though we didn't make a lot of money, but we got a platform to let people know about Jesus
Amen.
and have altar calls and lead people to the Lord and pray with them when they were hurting and all of that. So I mean, again, yeah, I wish I owned my masters. I wish I owned all of my publishing, or at least a co-publishing deal on everything back in those early years. Because now, if I want to use any of it, I have to license it. Which is, hey, it is what it is. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying
Okay, I think you.
when
I think
when some,
you can say that a little bit more Italian. You can say that just a little bit more Italian. It is what.
hey, I know what they did, but we're not going to talk about it, okay? So anyway, hey, listen, we signed the paper, right? We signed the paper,
I
but
did too.
we got something. Yes, I know you did, and we got something beautiful out of it
Yeah.
that we might not have got if we didn't find out how does this work back in those days and be a part of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, and all the label guys, the radio guys, they're all friends of mine for years, and I sure love them. I think what happens now with a lot of the artists, and you said it earlier, Gabriel, and it's true, is when they've got something going on where they sold 20, 30, 40,000 records on their own, and they've got, a million followers on social media and selling out shows. Yeah, why would they want to give that up?
Mm-hmm.
But there's always a way to make a good deal, a deal that's good for the labels and one that's good for you as well, because the publishing companies, they are able to expose our music way more than we can do ourselves,
Absolutely.
because it's not everybody that goes viral and some song goes nuts and next thing you know 20 million people are have heard it and download, what I mean. That doesn't happen every day.
Nope.
It's we're all it can happen now because of the way that the marketplace has changed.
Yeah. But for every
But I
Gundam,
just,
yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I tell people all the time, just document your music, do your music. You never know, even if it's one person, but it's usually more than that,
Yeah.
that you're gonna and it's worth doing. And every now and then you'll get a little surprise, and it goes a lot further along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think as believers, it gives us more satisfaction, even if you're trying to do it for a living or supplement your household with it. You're trying to offset the expense. There is that hope and that gratification of I'm ministering to people, and
yeah, yeah,
there's it's difficult on the business side to look at the metrics, look at the analytics, and like, man, I feel like I'm not doing anything. The Lord had to get a hold of me hard last year before last, and say, essentially, if your music led to one person getting healed or one person getting saved, is that enough for you? You still there? Oh, there we
yeah,
go.
yeah,
You just got a call coming in.
yeah,
And I had to get, I was incredibly convicted because, we've heard that growing up, if it's just for one, if one comes, when you do the Christmas pageant or the Easter pageant and you put all this work into this big event and, maybe one person comes or maybe one person doesn't come up and you don't know if somebody walked away or you were that last bit of water that somebody else is going to have a conversation. They're going to get saved, the next week. We don't
yeah,
know. So,
absolutely.
but I tell you something that you had, and especially the Christian musicians, Christian music creators, Christian artists, everybody has their own terms. Some people don't like artists. Some people like artists. Something that was in our culture in the church that I don't see much anymore outside of Southern Gospel, actually. You were able to go and minister churches, whether for a predetermined, this is what we need financially or the love offering, right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
That's almost non-existent now.
Wow.
Why do you think that happened? And that's something else. Like I've been trying to scratch my brain. Like, how do we curb this? When I did my
Yeah.
second Christian record, and I went to a Christian college, raised in the Church of God. So I've got tons of friends that are pastors and reached out to friends and, oh, well, I don't know. And, or you can, it was difficult, to even make it happen with people that I knew. Granted, I wasn't coming off of some big old Christian music hit. I was like, oh, I got a #1 smooth jazz record, but I got my Christian
Yeah.
record now. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
we don't care. And that's fine. That's fine. That's why I always tell people, when they find out, like, you had a #1, and I was, you were #1 in Billboard. I was like, yeah, so it's jazz though. It doesn't count.
Oh, no, listen, I so admire what you do, and I think it's fantastic. I spent a lot of time playing everything from bebop to just traditional jazz to fusion to all of that
It's the good
stuff.
stuff. How can Christian musicians, Christian music ministers, what would be your advice? And if they're wanting to go and to share their gift, they're wanting to go into churches to minister, because you get into secular venues, a bar, open mic, can you get in there and play? Yeah, but and depending on what your music is about, because some people I write a lot of my music is evangelistic, so I can do I've done
Mhm.
some even some minor instrumentals, so I've done them at my jazz shows or vice versa, and
Yeah,
share my testimony. Which I share my testimony no matter what, no
yeah.
matter where or what I'm performing. But what would your advice be to, you got somebody that's 17, 22,
Yep.
creating their own Christian music and may not necessarily be praise and worship or something, and they want to go and they want to minister? What would you tell them?
I mean, I would say you got to do everything you know to do to get out there and play. If it's the coffee shop, if it's for a youth group, and just start building an audience, because you're right. Years ago, churches would bring all kinds of people in all the time, but not so much anymore because we have it's different. People can get they can get whatever they want uh, online, through different apps, through different YouTube, whatever it is, they can find it. It's people aren't hungry to get out there and do what they did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's but you have the ability to make great music and to do what you can to get in front of people, because what's going to happen? One, start a mailing list. This is what we did years ago. Just, with your social media, get more people who want to like your stuff and want to follow you. And little by little, that builds and grows. So maybe you played the coffee shop for 15 people, and maybe the next time you got 25 people, and maybe the next time you got 50, and maybe the next time you got to look for a bigger place. That's kind of the way it happens, and you got to hope that you have something unique and special that will get people talking about you and your music. That's just, again, it's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have something special, but anybody can play for somebody. And so you just go do it. If God's calling you to do it, go after it. Find people that you love and you look up to, where you can just find out how do they do what they do. Look at their website. What does it look like? Go to
Mm-hmm.
their Facebook, go to their Instagram, whatever it is, and study what's out there and find out, not that you're going to copy everything, but what is your version of the best of what happens at any given moment? What's your version of it?
Yeah.
Dream it up, invent it, and do it.
That's good. That's good. Somebody can play for anybody. Anybody can play for somebody. God's told you to do it, go do it.
That's right. That's right.
That's beautiful. So tell us about what so I know now you're serving at Grace Temple. Grace Temple?
Grace Chapel.
Grace Chapel. Grace
Grace
Chapel.
Chapel.
You're in Nashville.
Yep.
You're a care pastor, but you're still playing blues. I saw you a lot. Facebook doesn't show me a whole lot of your stuff anymore because, it picks like 5 people and it shows you those same 5 people for a year. So a couple years,
I know, right?
A couple years ago, it was showing me you like every day, and I was like, I love this. It's like in every other post was like you and Phil Keggy, and you're playing blues.
Fun.
So tell us about that. So you did the rock thing, you had your own label, went through the '90s, and then you kind of transitioned into formal ministry. Like take us from the music industry to that hybridization of music industry and music ministry, or just ministry, formal ministry.
There was a time when for 5.5 years, I actually got a day job, and I worked at EMI Christian Music in the publishing department.
That's right.
I was the creative director, then vice president of creative, and just learning and growing in that world. And I did that for 5.5 years. And then after that, I did some management. And then I've been on staff at Grace Chapel. It's in Franklin, just about a half hour from the downtown Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
But Franklin's a great little town, and our church is wonderful. I've been on staff 17 years.
Wow.
And I still make records.
Mm-hmm.
I have a band called Blues Council. And if anybody's interested to find this stuff, the best way you can find it is, just go to rickcua.com and just check out, listen to some music, see what's available. And you can also Google, whether it's me or Blues Council, on go to YouTube. And there's some videos and different things there as well. But, for me, there's always got to be something creative. I mean, I believe every job is a creative job. They say there's the admin people and the creatives. I think it's all creative. I mean, if you're going to do a good job at it, you got to be creative too.
Yeah.
And for me, just loving folks in the church is something I really enjoy. My wife works with me; she's a biblical counselor, and but I've always got to be writing. I got to be writing a song. I wrote a book and a devotional not long ago, and we did a bunch of things with Blues Council, mainly the decade of between '09 and 19. We had 6 records out,
Wow.
and we did one. Some of the ones we did, just a little show and tell. This was Slow Demolition was one of our records, and this was the first one, Let the Healing Begin, and Love Infusion. This is our little psychedelic one.
Nice.
And then we did a record in Muscle Shoals sessions.
Oh, nice.
And then we did Best of the Decade, which is 20 tracks, our favorite songs from those 5 records there. So, we just you got to create something,
So
there's always something well, you know how it is. You still play and write and love it. And do you do a lot of gigs out?
yeah. So up until COVID, I was touring full time. That's what paid the bills, and I slowed my
Wow.
schedule up. It's funny, myself and a friend of mine. Well, my friend who's from that neighborhood, right where Billy Joel's from. I play in his band. He has a Billy Joel tribute band. I wonder why he did that.
Oh.
Yeah, he looks and he sounds exactly like Billy. The best Billy Joel tribute in the
Really?
yeah, he's the best one in the country. So we were talking one day,
Wow.
because this crazy world and all the craziness that was going on in 2020, and we were like, how in the world were we doing this? And he's
Hmm.
he's he's maybe 9 years older than I am. So he's in his early
Hmm.
50s now. And
Hmm.
we were like, were we crazy? Of course, now he's back. I mean, he's out still doing like an average of, I don't know, 6 to 8 shows a month. And
Wow.
I'm mostly doing, and that's like nationwide. That's everywhere from
Wow.
California to upstate to, South Florida. I'm still
Wow.
doing. I did, I think, about 20 shows last year, and probably like 30 private events in the area, because the private events,
Yeah.
honestly, the private events pay almost as much as my shows do. So I was like,
Sure. Sure.
and I'm building
Where do you
a.
live, Gabriel?
I'm in North Carolina, so yeah, I was born in
Oh, great. Okay.
Massachusetts. Yeah, I was born in Massachusetts, so I still got my Yankee card. Raised in Florida, which is neither south nor north. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I've been in North Carolina now long enough to consider myself a North Carolinian, because I've lived here longer than anywhere else in my whole life.
Wow.
But I have a studio project that I'll tell you about at the end. That's kind of why I've slowed my schedule down, because I've got a whole vision with that. It's an incredible thing. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about the
Wow.
blues thing, because you come from this like Southern rock, which, I mean, blues kind of makes sense. But listening to your old records, I was like, I wonder if blues was just something, an itch he never got to scratch and always wanted to do, or was that like a new conquest, a new territory? Like, was that something you always wanted to do, and like but you didn't want to be a blues
No,
artist back in the day, because it wasn't, if you weren't BB King, it's like, well, I'm not going to make any money doing that. So,
oh, exactly. Well, with Blues Council, first of all, it's spelled council is Counsel,
hmm
and what we're saying is, if you got the blues, we're your
you're the
therapy,
counselors.
and it's blues, rock, and Latin. So that's what we do. So there's some traditional bluesy things. I'm more the rock voice of the band, and then Emedine Rivera is our percussionist he's from New Jersey, and I've played with him since the '70s, and
Whoa.
he's got 5 Emmys, and he's just incredible and a dear, dear, dear friend. So we always do some Latin stuff. Now, it's only, how do I say it? Emedine is that. He is that we're trying to be Latin when we play Latin, but some true Latin bands might, listen to my bass lines and think, you're more of a rock guy, but I do my best to play a good samba.
Hey man, if you can play the notes and you know the style,
That's it.
and you're not trying to be,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, I forgot the guy's name, the king of salsa, the guy that Mark Anthony played in the movie. Anyway, you're not trying to be that. You're just like, hey man, I'm
Yeah.
going to play the Santana tune and go back to the blues. So
Yeah. 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 Music, we just love music. You love it, I love it, our friends love it, and the listeners love it. Music is a delivery vehicle for a lot of joy and a great message.
mm.
And that's why it means so much to all of us.
Go, yeah. I'm gonna pull a William Shatner from his recent interview with Mike Tyson. Go deeper on that, because I don't think musicians, we don't actually talk about music enough, about just what is music to you. Like, how would you define it? And then I'll give you
Yeah,
my
yeah,
definition.
yeah. Something happens inside of me with music that it is better than. And listen, I love a great movie. I love a good book, but music is how I get closer to God. That's just exactly what it is.
Mm.
And there's times where, it's the lyric that draws me in, but there's times where just that incredible song just brings me closer to God to know. Like, for example, I'll go to the gym uh, and just put my little bone conduction things on and listen to my favorite stuff. And God will say, look at that person, or pray for that person.
Mm.
I mean, just from where I am, or gives me a heart for the people I'm looking at. And that's what music does. It opens me up to hear the Holy Spirit even louder, even more.
Mm. That's powerful. Who are some of your favorite? Like, who are your go tos? Give me like your top 5, 10, or just whoever comes like off the top. Who do you listen to?
Yeah. Oh, I love Steely Dan, you know, Donald Fagen, Steely Dan, Gino
Cold,
Vanelli.
daring Gino
Um,
Vanelli. He was gonna be in Charlotte. I think he's coming to Charlotte Saturday. A friend of
wow.
mine's been playing
Yeah,
sax with him this summer.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's always been. It's that music's really kind of really sophisticated, and that's what I would call it. But I'll listen to all kinds of stuff. I'll listen to. Um, I mean, I've got all these playlists, but unfortunately, I can't pull them up because I'm using my
your phone.
rig here for you. So because bad enough I changed positions so I could plug in, but now if I got to say, "Hey, hang on, I'm going to open up a playlist."
So
No, but I love it. There was a band called the New Radicals. Get What You Give was this hit 12, 15 years ago. Whenever, love it. Um, just old stuff. Uh, Average White Band.
oh
You
yeah,
know. Yeah, just
they were
and then
funky.
of course Al Jarreau and just so many things. It's just my playlist is kind of, it's not really all over the place, but it's just all that stuff that I really
Yeah.
really have enjoyed over the years.
Yesterday, just a photograph of yesterday. All the edges,
Hmm.
all the edges folded and the corners faded sepia brown. And yet it's all I have of our first love, a postscript to its ending. Brighter days. So funny. So funny, actually.
I love it.
I got to
I
work.
love that.
I got to work a Toto show, and as crew. I was actually like the driver because the lady that was promoting the show, she's like, "You have your tour van. Can you please be the driver for the show that I'm working?" I'm like, what's the dates? I was like, what's the show? You know, I was like, well, I might be available. It's like, well, she said it's Toto. I was like, I'm clearing my schedule. I'll be there.
I
So
know.
they're
I know.
doing sound check, and I got a VIP backstage. I'm there to serve.
Oh yeah.
Service. Let me
Come
tell you,
on.
believers,
Of
service
course.
opens doors, right? And
Yes, it does. That's right.
they have this VIP sound check, and Lukather's talking to, answering a question for a fan, and David Pate starts playing Spain. I'm right in front of him
Oh.
on the floor, and my head whips around so fast it almost came off my body. And he saw
Oh
me.
my
He
God.
saw me do that, and I said, Spain. He's like, Al Jarreau. No, it's actually it's not even Al Jarreau. It was Chick Corea. So
Korea. Yeah.
I had talked to some of the band and crew, but I hadn't had a chance to talk to them because we're working. You're not there to bother people. But I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an opportunity. I'm going to pick my moment. And he's walking down the hallway. They're walking into their dressing room, right? And I do just that. I just start singing it. He stops, turns around, and he's like, "Who are you? You can sing. Who are you? You can sing." Got to talk to him for 20 minutes. It was so cool.
See, that's what music does, right there. That's what it does. That's awesome, man.
I,
I love that.
so in the last few minutes, I just need a couple. So when I talked to interviewed Tom, he was actually really like the progenitor interview when COVID was still happening, and I actually need to interview him again. I interviewed Tom Hemby, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
my
so
butt.
talked a little bit about Midnight Sun, talked about stuff with Carmen. I need at least one or as many Midnight Sun stories as you can give me, and then we will call it a wrap.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I can, I will. Right. I can, I will. That's on Midnight Sun, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Young boy, young girl
Yep.
on Midnight Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have to look just to be sure. So, I can, I will. I wrote that with my friend Bob Halligan Jr. Bob is a dear friend and great from Syracuse, songwriter, hit songwriter. I mean, many, many big songs. And we've written a load of anthems to get rock anthems together and other things. But we were in Italy. We were driving from Milano to Roma, and we were in the van, and we write wherever we are. We don't care. So there's 10 other people in the van. We're just writing a song.
Music happens
We stop.
everywhere.
And, oh, yeah. And we stop and we're all, cappuccinoed up, and espresso, and we're jazzed.
Woo!
And so we wrote I Can, I Will in that van. And we also wrote Young Boy, Young Girl in that van. And I Can, I Will, I can remember playing for a thing called Young Christians Weekend at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. And the first time we played that song, kids were running up to me, wanting me with their pen or pencil and paper in hand, wanting me to tell them that chorus because they wanted to sing it. And I knew this song was connecting with people because low self-esteem is something that everybody battles with.
Yes.
Sometimes you're solid as a rock. Other times your self-esteem wavers. But that song went on to be number one at rock radio for 6 weeks, and it was a rock song of the year as well. Young Boy, Young Girl, another message that everybody really, really, took a big chunk out of. So we were playing once. I can remember everybody loved that tune, and there's this young boy, I don't know, 14, 15 years old, runs up to the stage And he looks at me all wide-eyed. He's got his girlfriend with him. He said, "Can you play that song, Oh Boy, Young Girl?" And I thought, no, it's young boy, young girl, not oh boy, young girl. So I played it. I played it, and he actually slow danced in front of the band. But anyway, that tickled me so much.
So you had to go to the
Anyway,
motherland. You
great.
had to go to the motherland to get the
Yeah,
hits.
that's right. Oh boy, you know what? We would always listen. It was great wherever but we always wanted to redeem the time. Yes, we're going to sightsee and do this and visit with our friends, whatever. But we could write anywhere,
Yeah.
and if we knew we were coming away with another song or two, it kind of made us happy.
Yeah. Well, there's, goodness gracious, probably tens of thousands of hits or, that were not written in the studio. I mean, there's
Mhm.
stories after stories of
Oh,
people
that's right.
leaving the studio to go do something, and then inspiration strikes.
I know it. No, absolutely right. So that record, Tom Hemby is such a wonderful friend, and man, he did such a beautiful job on that record, and there was a lot of great stuff on there as well. So yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed that one.
Still to this day, who came up with the bass line for "I Can, I Will" for the verses? Dude, let me tell you that
Dun,
I have introduced.
dun, dun. Yeah,
That
yeah,
second, look
that
at
was
me,
great.
I'm
Great.
ready, I'm full of
Yeah,
fire. Used to be unsteady with no desire. Look at you, still waiting to make your move.
make your
Time to stop
time to stop
debating.
debating.
You've got nothing to lose.
That's it. Daytime, nighttime.
Keep
Keep
your
your
eyes
eyes
on
on
him.
him.
Boo-doo.
Yeah,
That's after the solo, which that's
yeah,
solo.
over and over again.
Woo,
Yeah, no, great.
wow. And then it has that, it was so funny because Bill and Ted 2, when Steve Vai did the Kiss song, he did his version of "God Gave Rock and Roll to You," and like you guys did that. I mean, there's a couple things that I was like, man, where did you guys borrow that from? Because I heard that before in Rick Cua's record, but this came out afterwards. So who came up with it first? Yeah,
Oh, that line there,
it was
the line in those verses. I'm not, now listen. This is I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So you gotta
you're Chicken
roll
Marsala.
with me with
You're
that.
just so much better.
I I think that was Tom Hemby coming up with that. It may have been Bob Halligan Jr. So if any of you two guys are watching this, you straighten me out because I had to name you both just in case. But that line, everything about it was killer. Just
No,
great,
let me
just
tell
great.
you that album not only still ministers to me to this day, but because Tom and I we got into the nitty gritty, the engineering side of it, and I was like, it sounds good, but there's not a bad song on that album. I can listen to it front to
No,
back.
the
I mean,
yeah,
streetwise, I can, I will. Young boy, young girl, dedicated. Dedicated might be. Well, no, dedicated is that's. What's the song after that?
hold on, I'm looking for it.
Oh, I got it right here. I got it right here. It's
Show and tell.
I'll be
Oh, you
satisfied.
got it.
Yeah, I'll be
Oh,
satisfied.
I love that.
That's my little surprise for you. That's what I wanted to end with on the interview side. So I actually completely recreated that song, and I've recorded the lead like 3 times, and I'm like, nope, it's not good enough, and I keep on. I just need to put it out there because it's just for YouTube. I'm not gonna like release it because I basically like perfectly. I was actually gonna see if I could fool you. I was gonna start playing it and be like, can you tell that that's not you?
Wow, come on.
Yeah, check it out. That is my song, man. That's my jam.
I love that song.
This is the day that I won't just walk by. Yeah, that bridge. Let me take you to the bridge. Let me see the day when there's no more crying. Oh, Brother
great.
Rick, let me
That's
tell you,
great.
man, that is, I tell you the thing that gets me emotional nearly every time I listen to that song, and I have to tell you, there's been countless musicians that I've had in my tour vans over the years that I've played your record for, and they're like, who is this? When did this come out? And I'm like, bro, this is older than you. Because, you know, I got all these 30-year, 20-year-old, 30-year-old musicians. And they're like, man, the 80s was just so much better than what we got today, man. But the thing that gets, what touches me about that song is, I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, once we're on the other side of glory, we'll be satisfied. You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that to me, the messages in that album to me, that's why I still share it to this day. You know, is Young Boy, Young Girl any less relevant today than it was in the 80s when it came out? I mean, to me, with our over-sexualized society, you know, we need more songs like that. And if nobody's going to write those songs, hey, play that one. Play that one. But, you know, when all the tears run dry, when all the hearts stop breaking, when all the fears just pass them by, that's all that I asked for, all that I hope for. And the moment is over, I'll be satisfied. I could put that. I could put that on my headstone. I could. That's just.
I love that. Oh, that Bob Halligan, and Bob Halligan is all over that song and those lyrics. I mean, yeah, that's the sweet one. We wrote that kind of for Compassion International, you know, child development. And but you're right. I mean, that hits anybody. It hits anybody.
Yep. And you ended that record with the perfect tune. You know, the lost can still be found. The world still needs a savior. It's, you know, we can't give up. We've got to share his love. I mean, when I start listening to that record, I have to get all the way to the end, because you take us through, you know, no man will know the day of the hour. You take us through, you know, the coming of the Lord, tear down the walls, and then the lost can still be found. So, you know, the only thing that cheeses me about this album is it's not on streaming, and somebody else actually loaded it on YouTube a few years ago, because for a long time you couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, it's, you know, to that point, I'm working on a project now. It's called, it would be 40, the Ultimate Collection, and it'll be a physical CD, where, you know, if people wanted to grab it, we've licensed a certain amount of them. Just that was interesting to try and get all that done, but everybody was very helpful. But you're right; it's not all on digital. So, but if there's a way people want to find it, that'll come out toward the end of the year, I believe.
Great.
Anyway,
well, you let me know, because I'm going to share it with people. So, you know, you've got rickcua.com. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say thank you so much for putting up with our location change and my low battery and all that other crazy stuff. Gabriel, you're my friend. You are an incredible musician with such a history yourself, and I'm honored to have spent this time with you.
Well, I have to say, sir, I am here because of you.
Oh, well,
you know, it wasn't the biggest, hit in Christian music. You weren't like a Carmen Gaither guy, but every time,
Yeah.
I listen. Like I said, I'm sharing your record with my daughter who's 10, and
Wow.
anytime the devil wants me, what did you do with, like, just remember this guy, because you made
Uh,
a heck of an impact in this guy's life, and my whole family, my whole family. That record is in our DNA. It's in our veins. That whole album.
oh,
So
thank you. Thank
you've
you.
blessed
Uh,
many people, but especially us. So
oh, thank you, brother. Love you.
love you. The Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you and your household and your family and everything that your hands touch and everywhere that your feet go. May you have his shalom
Mm,
be made whole. In Jesus, Yeshua's
thank you.
mighty name. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Lord.
much, Rick. Y'all make sure all the links, all the links will have shown down there underneath. So Jesus loves you, and so do we. Y'all take care.
Thank you. You too.